Hello everyone, and thanks for taking the time to review the Santa Clara County real estate market analysis for May 2008. My name is Robert Whitelaw, and I'm a licensed California real estate broker, a member of the National Association of Realtors, and a certified E-Pro. Let's go ahead and jump right into the numbers for Santa Clara County for May of 2008. Now the first numbers we're going to see are supply and demand, and what these basically cover are the homes that have sold, the homes that have been listed, and the homes that are currently in inventory. Now this goes back just years, so this is the month of May going back from 2008, this year, all the way back to 1999, and reflects all the numbers for each one of those times of year. So that way you're not having to worry about seasonal influences. This is the month of May, the same month each year, so changes are in the context of the time that they occur. So you don't have to worry about whether or not we're seeing Christmas here or summer months or anything else. This is just the month of May. And you can see that the number of homes that have sold is actually down from last year. It's down 12.2%, which gave us a grand total of 873 homes sold. Now we go ahead and look at the red bar, which is the homes that were listed. Now this is actually a good number to look at right now because it's a very minor change. Now last year, from 2006 to 2007, we actually saw this number drop a bit, which was a good thing, because we were already in a declining market then. As you can see, we've been in kind of this situation that we're in now since about 2004. 2004 is sort of when it started. 2005 is when we were solidly really in it. Sales kind of stagnated. Inventory was relatively good in 2005. It was declining from 2003, but then from 2005 on was when we saw things start to go south. We saw home prices, number of homes sold going down. We saw the average number of homes not the average, but the total number of homes on the market increase, and that's led us to where we are now in 2008. Now, one change that we've seen as far as new homes listed is while there was a decline, an increase, between 2005 and 2006, we then saw a decrease last year, and it's flattened this year, which is sort of representative of all the numbers we're seeing. Things in general are starting to flatten, but it was actually down 1/3%. So it's not significant enough to get too excited, but it's definitely good news that it isn't increasing. We often see homes being listed this time of the year, because this is when folks tend to put things on the market, but I think it's good that we're seeing this stay where it is, simply because that'll help bring down the inventory numbers if we do get any kind of a bump in the number of homes that sell during this time of year, which tends to be a little bit more robust. Now the inventory, this is the big number. This is really what's been hitting us because we have just so many homes on the market. Inventory increased, and by the way, the number of homes that were listed in the month of May was 2,124. The total inventory was up 42.3% from 2008. That's a big increase, and you can see we had a relatively steady increase from 2005 till 2008. That gave us a total of 6,132 homes for sale in all of Santa Clara County in May of 2008. Now, if you do the math, that basically gives us the ratio that I've talked about in previous presentations of 7.02, and that means that depending on how you look at it, it could mean we have a little over 7 months worth of inventory. So if we didn't get any more homes listed, if we just had to sell all the homes that are currently for sale right now, and we had the same sort of sales numbers that we've had in May, it would take us 7 months to sell all the homes currently on inventory. Another way to think of it is how many homes are on the market for every one that gets sold. So for every home that gets sold, there's about 7 homes on the market. That's actually an increase from other months, so we're actually in good territory now. At least it's not double digits. There are some areas in the county that have seen that number go up to 20, 25, even 30 homes on the market for every one that sells. So in the big picture, that's actually good news. Now let's go ahead and take a look at supply and demand just over the past month. And in this case, we do need to compensate for seasonal influences. So this goes back directly from today in May all the way back to February of last year. And I like to go a little bit more than a year back so you can see what led up to the same period last year as well as what happened after it, so that we can sort of do a one-to-one comparison to then and now. Now, as we sit here in May, you can see we've had a pretty dramatic increase in inventory that's fluctuated a bit. Last year we had a bit of a bulge in the September, October, November time frame, a dip in December and January, which is normal. Wintertime we always see a dip in inventory, and then a steady increase as we've gotten further and further into 2008. And you can see that that also was the trend last year. What is a good thing to do when you're looking at these numbers is look for things outside of normal. Now, the numbers may be higher or lower, but how are they acting in relation to the times around them? If you suddenly see a big dip from one month to another, where in previous years during that same time frame you didn't see that dip, that's something you might want to look at. Those are usually things you want to focus on and see if it's just a strange statistical anomaly, or is it something that tells us something else is happening in the market. Now, if you look back to April, you can see that between April and May of last year, the inventory increased. You can also see that in April and May, the sales increased. You can also see that the listed homes increased. The good news is this year, that's not what we're seeing. We're actually seeing a net drop in the number of homes that are listed. We are seeing an increase in sales between April and May, and we're actually seeing a better increase in sales between April and May this year than we did last year. Now, that's all good news for the market right now. We'll see how it pans out in the coming months as we continue into the summer months. If we see performance like last year, however, June is where this is likely to end. Notice that sales dropped in July and August. Now, we're not talking about sales as far as average home price. We're talking just the sheer number of homes here. And that was a pretty solid hit for folks last year who in a lot of cases, missed the selling period entirely last year, who jumped into the market in late May, late June, and by the time they were out on the market, buyers looked like they had already packed up and gone home and were no longer shopping. Now, we'll see how that pans out. It'd be nice if we could have a prolonged selling period, because if we continue to see fewer people jumping into the market and we can take some time to sell some of these homes, because notice we've seen sort of a topping off of the inventory. We see a pretty big jump from December all the way to April, but the rate of increase substantially dropped between April and May. We can see a pretty steady line of increase going from January through February on up to April, but then you see how it flattens out. We would have expected if we were going to see a continued progression of increase on par with what we saw in previous months, we would have expected to see May to be a little higher in inventory. Since we don't see that, I think that's an encouraging sign. Now, to give you the straight numbers on this, between April and May, the number of homes that sold increased 33.5%. That's a great number. It's seasonal and normal to see that kind of increase between April and May, but as a percentage, that's a higher percentage than we would normally expect between April and May. Usually we'd see it in the high 20s, so that's more good news. The number of listings decreased 4.6%. That is an excellent number. Seeing that number going down at this time of year when compared to the previous month is a very good sign. Inventory change only up 1.4%. So it is up. It'd be nice. It's normal. It's seasonally normal to see it increase, and I'm encouraged by the fact that it didn't increase at a greater rate. Now let's go ahead and take a look at home prices. Now this is again a table that shows us all the data just looking at the month of May going back to 1999. So we'll start off here, and these are good indicators to show you when times have been more robust for sellers. Back in 2000 we saw a big jump, and then in 2001 we saw a dip. Right now we're experiencing our biggest dip. The change from last year, we'll just jump right into that first. Home prices are actually down 11.5% from the same time last year in 2007. So that's hitting a lot of sellers, particularly folks who haven't owned their home for very long. I know that's a tough one to swallow, but there is some encouraging information. The average sales price was $970,702 in Santa Clara County. The highest priced home was on Magdalena Road in Los Altos Hills. The home sold for $11 million. Its original list price was $13,450,000. So that was almost a $2.5 million drop in the price of that home over the course of its listing. Now, what's also interesting to note is that home was on the market for 324 days, so on the market for an extremely long time. Definitely not the price the seller originally wanted for the property, but it's good to see some properties that have been on the market longer getting taken out of the inventory. And again, as I've mentioned in previous shows, we're seeing that as a trend. A lot of homes that have been on the market for a lot longer are getting taken out of the mix of inventory, and that's a pretty good sign when you start to see some of the properties that have been out there for a while trying to get sold finally getting sold. Now, the lowest priced home was on Terrelin Avenue in San Jose. That home sold for $350,000, and its list price was originally $374,900, and its total time on market was 65 days. That's pretty good numbers. So basically about a $25,000 drop in asking price from its original list price to its sell price. Now let's go ahead and take a look at those same numbers, just looking back at previous months. Now, again, we'll want to take into account seasonal influences here, but all in all, for the first half of this series, going all the way up to November, right up until we hit 2008, this is all pretty flat. There's a little variation based on time of year. Last summer, the winter months, you see a steady dip during the winter months. What we don't see here is what's particularly interesting. Notice from January to now, relatively flat performance. January, February, and March could be the same month as far as the statistics are concerned. Minor increase in April, decrease in May, all very flat. Now look at the same time period last year. Not the same story at all. We saw a pretty substantial increase from February to March, another increase from March to April, relatively flat performance from April to May, and then a decline. Now, and that's another indicator that we didn't really get our full summer season last year. Those prices reflect the fact that the buyers were disappearing, and yet there were still a lot of homes on the market. So in order to get homes sold, people had to entice more buyers with lower prices, and that's really what is shown on the graph, that response to the market. Now, I suppose on the upside, you can say that this is encouraging when compared to previous years, because we saw a lot of sellers sort of stubbornly holding on to their list prices and not really being willing to entertain lower prices. Anecdotally, what I'm hearing from folks out in the world that are getting homes sold and trying to get transactions completed, that has changed. A lot more flexibility on the part of sellers. People are realizing that this could be a longer process than they had thought, so they're willing to entertain lower prices. And I think last year's experience and what we're seeing today reflect that, which could also be contributing. The reality has set in for a lot of folks, and I think that can contribute to it. Now, as I said, the average price in Santa Clara County in May of 2008 was $970,702. Now, in the short term, that change between April and May brings the average home price down 1.6%. But the good news here is we're not seeing volatility. We're not seeing a dramatic drop. We're not seeing these huge precipitous drops in the prices. We're seeing a flattening. Now, remember what we talked about before. The changes each month are just becoming more subtle, whether it's bad news like an increase in inventory, or whether or not a home price is increasing or decreasing on average. All these things are now subtly making their changes and not making dramatic changes. And I think that's actually a good thing for the market. It shows that while it's not at a level where sellers would like it to be, and it is at a level where a lot of buyers would like it to be, at least it is reaching a level of stability. We'll see if that continues on, but I think it's encouraging to see that things are not dramatically jumping up and down in any directions. Now let's take a look next at the days on market. This is the next most important number we all want to know. How long does it take us to get our home sold once we put it on the market? And this is a good one to look at to give you a really good idea of how things have performed in the past, when there are other times things have been a little bit more difficult. Now, for a lot of the smaller communities in Santa Clara County, 2001 and 2003 are remembered as tough times. That's when we had the high-tech bubble burst, and you can see that more dramatically reflected in some smaller communities where 2001 was a much more dramatically negative time for sellers. But really, there's just no comparison to what we're seeing in 2008 relating to Santa Clara County in general. The average days on market for a home in Santa Clara County to get sold is 71. That's the highest it's been since 1999. I'm willing to bet that if we could collect the data going back to 1990 further, we'd probably see that number rival, at least the last time I can remember numbers being up higher was 1996, 1995. So that's a pretty substantial record, and unfortunately it's not a happy record for the folks in Santa Clara County. The total increase from 2007 to 2008 for the total days on market is a whopping 61.4%. That's not great news, but at least we're seeing other elements of the market that are moving it. Another thing that's interesting is we've over the last 2 weeks. And those are very short-term numbers. I don't use short-term week-to-week numbers when I do these things because they're just too unreliable to base any real opinions on. But if anyone's looking to find some rays of sunshine, at least we are seeing month-to-month drops in inventory the last 2 weeks. That's a good thing. A lot of people have tried to figure out why that is, but frankly, I'd see it as just something you can sort of put to one side and think, oh, well, that's nice to know, but I wouldn't base any long-lasting decisions on that particular information. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the days on market going back for recent months now. So again, we go back to February, so we can see sort of the trends. How did the market, as far as days on market, react to different times of year? You can see there as we get through the winter months of December, January, and February, those days tend to increase. Last summer, again, we want to look at those dates. We want to see how we're comparing to the same time last year. Now look, from January all the way to today, all the way to May, we're seeing a steady decline. No dramatic changes. We go from 87 to 81, 81 to 76, 76 to 74. We're seeing 2, 3, 4 day changes here for the most part. And again, I think that's a good thing. We're not seeing dramatic increases or decreases. Now, you can point to last year and see that from February to March, very big drop between February and March, from 71 to 57 days, all the way down to 46 days, down to 44 days, which was the lowest point that it reached last year, due in large to the early arrival of what little summer season we did have. But I'm not discouraged by the numbers we're seeing now, despite the fact it's not dropping to a huge degree. It is going down, but it's a flat representation of the progression of the market. So if this equals more stability, if we start seeing just everything staying flat for the longer term, I actually think that's healthier for us. It's better than some dramatic, huge correction one way or the other, because people tend to panic when those things happen. So in general, again, sort of a sit and wait and see what happens attitude, but I'm actually encouraged by this particular data. Now, between April and May of 2008, we actually saw a drop of 4.1% of the total days on market. So I don't think it's anything to get too concerned about. Now, I do appreciate y'all taking the time to review the data that I publish here. And if you'd ever like to get in contact with me, I'd love to hear from you. Now, the first and best way to find me, all the things that I write relating to real estate, my video presentations, my podcasts, and all the listings that you could ever want to find in Santa Clara County can be found at my website at www.soldbyrobert.com. If you'd like to email me with questions, ideas, suggestions, or observations, I'd be more than happy to communicate with you through email, and you can reach me at robert@soldbyrobert.com. Or if you'd like to give me a phone call about real estate, talk about the market in your area, talk about my market, or anything else, I'd be happy to discuss it with you. You can reach me at 408-852-0525. Or if you find yourself sitting on your computer regularly, you can also find me using AOL Instant Messenger, Google Talk, or Yahoo IM. And my screen name for all of those systems is The Rebel Broker, all one word. Very easy to find. And remember, if you use Google Talk, you don't actually have to have AOL Instant Messenger or Yahoo Instant Messenger installed. You can just go to Google Talk and do it right through their website without any worries. And of course, I always appreciate referrals. If you or anyone you know is interested in buying or selling real estate in Santa Clara County or any of the areas in the South Silicon Valley area, I'd be happy to help. Please feel free to give them my contact information so that we can set up a time to help them satisfy their needs. Thanks again, and I look forward to talking to you all next month.